Good morning from London. It's been a while and it's nice to be back. In this video we'll be talking about the new Fuji X100VI. I've been using this camera almost every day for the last week, and now I can give you my initial impressions. This is not a review, this is not final, my opinions can change with time, but this is just how I first feel about the camera, having used it for a little bit. For context, I have used Fujifilm X100VI before. I've owned one, and I've been using Fuji cameras for the last 5 years, so I'm not coming into this completely new. With that said, I paid full price for this camera. Fujifilm has nothing to do with this video, and all opinions that I share are my own. This is a cool shot here, courtesy of a good friend, Mark Fernley. So if you look right through there, some amazing reflections, clear source of light coming through, and even on a day like today, which is really cloudy and overcast, you can create some really nice contrast, as you can see in the back of the screen right now. So all you do is just wait here for a subject to come through, and hopefully you can get a good shot. Let's start with the positives, things that I like about this camera. And look, there's no getting around the fact that it's a very pleasing camera to look at. It's very aesthetically nice, and it's nice to hold in your hand. It's nice to look at it. It looks great with your outfit, because I know that's why so many people buy it. But all jokes aside, it's a very nice looking camera. It feels nice in the hand, it feels premium, and it's a camera that you just want to pick up, you know. So for example, if I look at a Sony a7R, for example, insane camera, very good. Does it make me want to pick it up? Not really, because it just feels like a tool, right? Whereas this feels more, I wouldn't go as far as saying it's a tool, it's still very capable, but it just feels nice to pick it up. It makes you want to pick it up and use, which goes into the second point about this camera, and that's positive, and that it's fun to use. Even though technically it might not be as advanced as most cameras out there, it's fun to use, it's fun to pick up. It makes you want to go out and take photos. It makes you want to, really get closer to the various subjects, to use all the dials, all the features, and it's just a pleasure to use. For some people, that's enough to warrant paying this much for a camera. For many other people, this is something that they think it's pointless, it's not technically advanced enough, etc. It's up to you to decide whether it's worth the extra investment to have something that looks nice and is fun to use. For me, I'm kind of on the border whether it's worth or not, but I might decide by the end of this video. The next positive is the build quality. It feels like a very well built camera. I've previously moaned about the X-T5 when I said that I felt the build quality has gone down a notch compared to the X-T4 and the X-T3. I can't really remember what the X100VI or the previous ones felt like, but this definitely seems okay. The materials are premium. I don't think it'll scratch too easily, but time will tell. And overall it feels solid. There's no play, there's no rattling. I don't know, yeah, it feels pretty good, so yeah, top marks for that. Now, even though the X100 doesn't have many physical buttons, I've managed to set it up perfectly for me, and I've not come across a scenario yet where I wish I had more buttons. Of course, on the XH2 or the X-T5, there are more work tools, so having more buttons makes sense. But on something like this, I honestly don't see an issue with it, although I understand some people don't like it. Today I'm out with these two gentlemen, Mike Chudley, you might already know him, and James Parsons right there. I'll link both of them down below. Go and check out their stuff. Really cool guys, great day shooting. So I love this little composition. I mean, this is definitely not the most original thing in the world. However, look at that reflection from the shard. It's literally just flooding and bathing this whole thing with light. It looks absolutely amazing. Now it's just a case of waiting for an interesting subject. Now I would say on the X100VI, so at 23mm, 35 full frame, it's a bit too tight. I would have liked to go a bit wider, maybe 28 but full frame, so that's 18 on a Fuji, but I think this should be okay. So I'll wait here for a bit more and see if I can find something that's interesting. The next positive is the image quality. Now, the sensor, this 40 megapixel sensor, I already know it's good. I've used it on the X-T5 or the X-H2, but now seeing it with this 23 f2 lens, it does look nice. The images are very pleasing. Honestly, in terms of image quality, in terms of sharpness, resolution, in terms of how the out of focus elements look, colors, there's nothing really to complain about. I think it's very good, and I can't think many people that would legitimately say the image quality is bad. So from that perspective, no complaints at all. And now onto my favorite part of this camera, and that is the built-in ND filter. Now, for some people that might be useless, but honestly, it's my favorite feature. I've used it so much for photo and for video that I'll talk about in a minute. It simply allows you to just slow everything down. If you want to do slow shutter speed stuff and still use a mechanical shutter, it's just one little press of a button and you have the opportunity. And having it built in, yeah, by far my favorite feature of the X100. And the final positive is the new video capabilities of this. Now, I know some X100 and photography purists will scoff at this. This camera is not designed for video. It's not, but it does video incredibly well, and to be honest, better than many other Fuji cameras because of the ND filter. So now we've got the IBIS, which is good. We also have the ND, which allows you to slow the shutter speed down. And the combination of all of these features together means you've got a very small and capable video package. In terms of codecs and in terms of resolutions, everything pretty much carries over from the X-T5, so you get a fantastic f-log2 image, and honestly, for little point and shoot video clips, this camera is wicked. Now let's talk about the negatives, because it's not all positive. As loved as these cameras are, they're not perfect, and even though many people like to ignore the negatives, they are still there. Let's start with the first one. And for a camera that is so centered around the user experience, I find it bizarre how the shutter, mechanical shutter, is silent, well, practically silent, and also you can't really feel it through the camera. On the previous X100 and on the other Fuji cameras, you can feel the shutter, you can hear it, whereas on this, you can't. Now, if you're into stalking or upskirting or any other endeavor which requires you to be, I don't know where this is going, but which requires you to not make a noise, let's just say that, and I guess this will be great, but I don't know, you buy this for the experience of using it, and having a shutter that doesn't really sound of anything or doesn't even feel like you've taken the shot, just seems a bit, I don't know, disconnected. As one of my mates put it, who's got the same camera, it feels like you're just using an iPhone. So it's probably my biggest disappointment with this camera, which for some people is not an issue, it's actually a bonus, but that's at least my opinion. The next negative is the weather sealing, or the lack thereof. This camera is marketed as weather sealed, however only if you buy an optional lens cover like this. This is not the Fuji one, it's a third party one, but it doubles the size of the lens, so it's no longer as pocketable as it was. And that's fine. However, if you buy the official Fuji lens cover, you're paying about $100 for one. And to me, it just seems like a money grab when you've already paid so much for a supposedly weather sealed camera to then have to spend another $100 to actually make it weather sealed and make it bigger at the same time. Again, for some people this will not be an issue, but I just find it, I don't know, a bit cheap. Now let me quickly talk about why I like this scene. So we'll start with a strong source of light coming from there, which is flooding this whole area, and because it's late in the day, it's creating these long shadows, which looks really nice. Then we have this building here, which is blocking off the scene. We have that building there with the leading lines, which is blocking off that bit. And then last but not least, we also have the bottom of this, whatever you want to call it, that's blocking off the bottom. We have a nice feature, which is the lamppost. And apart from that, when you compose this, you get a very pleasing overall composition. The next negative is the SD card. So this camera still uses a UHS 1 card, which is terribly slow. On the previous iteration of this camera, this wasn't an issue. However, now you have 40 megapixels, you have 4K, even 6K video, and to me, on a premium camera like this, using a UHS 1 card reader instead of a UHS 2, again, just seems cheap. Now, I'm sure there might be an engineering reason as to why this decision was made, but if it's just a cost-cutting decision, I don't know. I think it's a bit cheap, the fact that such a premium camera still only uses a UHS 1 slot. If you're finding this video useful and wish to support the channel, then one of the best ways to do so is to check out my London travel photography guide. This book is the result of years of living and shooting in the city and is designed to save you time and show you some of the best spots. 50 plus locations, 100 plus photo spots, GPS coordinates and general travel advice. Whether you're from the UK or visiting, this book will help. For more information, see links in the description, and thank you for your support. Now let's quickly talk about some neutral things. The reason they're neutral is because they're not good, they're not bad, and different people will have a different experience with them, and in many cases they'll be personal preferences. So let's first start with the battery life. It's not great for sure because it still uses the old battery life. Now if you're just taking photos, you're switching it off, you're using it casually as this camera is intended, you'll most likely get an entire day plus out of this camera. However, if you're using it for video, if you're always switching it between photo and video, taking bursts and using it as a tool, then you will burn through that battery very quickly and you'll need at least a couple more to get you through the day. The reason it's not a negative is because if you fit a bigger battery into this, you're making a bigger camera, and then that kind of defeats the purpose of the X100, and equally the typical X100 user will not be using this as a rigged out video camera or a professional photo shoot camera, so it's not really going to impact too many people, which is why I don't think it's a negative positive. It's just is what it is, depends how you use it. The next neutral point is the autofocus. Now, is it the best system? Of course it's not. It's quite slow, it's quite clunky, and it's no better than what was on the X100VI. However, again, if you think about the intended audience for this camera, they are not going to be sports and wildlife photographers. They're not going to be tracking a fucking cheetah running across a field. They'll be taking photos of their lunch, of their day out in a city on holiday, of their kids running around. And for that, this system is great. As a matter of fact, I was shooting some squirrels with it with my girlfriend. I set it to the animal tracking, and it performed really well, as these photos demonstrate. They're pretty in focus and they're pretty accurate, and those squirrels don't fuck about. They run around quite quickly. So is it a bad autofocus system? I mean, it's not great. You're not going to win any awards for it with it. Ugh. You get what I'm trying to say. If you're about to shoot the biggest campaign of your life and you need the best autofocus system, I probably wouldn't recommend this. But if you're in the 99% of other X100 user types that are just documenting their life with this camera, taking photos of friends, family, and all that kind of stuff, this system is more than good enough, in my opinion. And the last neutral point is the overall grip and handling of this camera. Again, the reason it's neutral is because people have different hands. If you have smaller hands, you'll probably find this comfortable. If you have bigger hands, it might seem a bit cumbersome. Equally, if you start adding bigger grips and all that kind of stuff, and you're defeating the point of this camera being small and pocketable. Personally, for me, I just find it not as comfortable as my XT5, and I feel like I have to really grip this camera in order to not drop it, and my hand gets tired after a while, because with the XT5 I can kind of just hang it on my fingers, whereas with this you have to always grip it. What I found helpful is to get a little thumb grip that goes in the hot shoe, and that improves my experience with this tenfold. Well, time to summarize and wrap up the video. So overall, what do I think of the X100, and would I recommend it? Who is it for? Let's just say this, in my opinion, this is a luxury item. This is not a camera that you would buy if you need a camera to learn photography, to do client work and to progress within photography. This is a camera that you will buy if you maybe already have a bigger camera that you use for your client work or for other photography, and you want something that's pocketable, small, looks nice, that you can take with you and use it for snapshots of your family, your friends, your trips, etc. Equally, if you're not super into photography, let's just say, you're not carrying around a ton of lenses and you want great image quality and something that's aesthetically pleasing and more engaging than, let's just say, shooting with a phone, but looks nice, then this is also a good camera. At the end of the day, this is a luxury item. For the amount of money that this costs, you can easily get an X-T50 with the same sensor. You can get an X-T30 for much less, and you can even find an X-T5, albeit without a lens. You'll have to spend extra on a lens, but you're getting a much more capable camera. So, do I recommend this? The short answer, it depends. If you have disposable income and you want a nice looking camera to document your life, then yes, go for it, you will love it. If, however, you're on a budget, or perhaps you want to take photography more seriously and use different lenses and even do client work or whatever, then I don't recommend it. For a similar amount of money, or maybe not much more, get yourself an X-T5, because that will be a much better investment than something like this.